Hi, I'm Peter Keeble and a very warm welcome to you. I'm one of the co-founders of Peveril Press, and my role in this company is primarily to research, to write about and promote our work on happiness and well-being. In this reel, we're just going to dip our toes into the waters of some of the important aspects of happiness, and going to leave you with some questions and some thoughts just to ponder on and mull on. Food for thought, if you like. In later posts, we will be examining some of these details in more detail. So for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy. In many ways, we're truly blessed to live in a world with so many opportunities to buy, to consume, and enjoy things. And yet, at the same time, these same things can bring their own problems, their own stresses, and their challenges. My, how times have changed. There's no doubt that the internet and social media have had a dramatic effect on our lives. We so often see people glued to their phones just like this, and maybe we are too sometimes. The question is, are we any happier now, even with all these things? I'm happy to say that there is an organisation which does some research that tells us how happy we are compared to other countries. Every year, there's an organisation which is called World Happiness, and it does some really extensive research on how happy people are in different countries around the world. And you can see the result for 2024 that the four happiest countries are Finland, Denmark, Iceland, and Sweden. The UK comes down at 20th and the USA 23rd. And isn't that interesting? What is it that these countries like Finland, Denmark, Iceland, Sweden are doing which is different and better in terms of happiness than what we're doing here in the UK and in America? And what can we learn from these countries? Well, here's one piece of learning that we can do. We can draw a distinction between external wealth, which is all the things we're talking about, the things that we can buy, that we can consume, the festivals that we can go to, and we can order something on Amazon and it can be with us the following day. We call that external wealth, and it's an important part of our happiness. There's no doubt about that. But there's another aspect of wealth, which is what we call internal wealth. The things that we can't buy. We can't buy new thoughts, new values, new beliefs, new self-talk, all the stuff that goes on inside us all the time, which is making a major contribution to our happiness or our unhappiness. And maybe one of the things we need to focus on is to get a better balance in our lives between our external wealth and our internal wealth, what we have and who we are. So balance between those two things that maybe we should focus on. There is some further research that says what defines our happiness. And interestingly, there's a fair chunk of our happiness that we can't do too much about, driven by our genetics, our DNA, if you like. 50% of our happiness is driven by our DNA and our genetic inheritance. Only 10% of our happiness is determined by our circumstances. That's quite surprising, isn't it? Because I think most people would have thought that would be much higher. But a whopping 40% of our happiness comes from our thoughts and actions. So surely it makes a great deal of sense to focus on those aspects of our happiness and maximize that 40%. But what are the specific characteristics of our experience on our thoughts and our actions which make up that 40%? Well, here's something. The ingredients of happiness, that 40% is made up of our resilience, that's our ability to bounce back from adversity, the compassion that we feel in our hearts for ourselves, for others, and the planet. Self-awareness, how aware are we of what's going on inside us, and how able are we to change that if it makes it better? Mindfulness, what we focus our attention on and what we don't focus our attention on, and the ability to be in the present and enjoy the present rather than worrying about the past or worrying anxious about the future. Seeing things from other people's perspectives, understanding others, is a key ingredient of happiness. Managing our self-talk. We're always constantly chattering to ourselves in our heads quietly, and quite a lot of it, if we're aware of it, is negative. I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, I'm not smart enough, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that. And finally, good quality and quantity of sleep. Those are some of the ingredients of happiness that Pam and I write about in our books on happiness, and which will be the subject of further, more in-depth reels in this series of YouTube channel reels. So you can learn more about those things if you tune in and follow us on our YouTube channel. So those are the aspects that we need to dive into a bit more deeply. Just like to leave you with this lovely quote. Every pound you spend is a vote for the world you want to live in. Isn't that a great quote? It means that everything that we do in terms of consuming things, buying things, actually can have a difference in helping to create a better world. So, for example, if we buy things which we know are made fairly, fair trade, for example, if we buy things that are more organic, if we buy things that we know are made in a sweatshop in a country which I shan't mention, where people are enslaved, then all we're doing is contributing to unhappiness in the world. And by spending our money in a way which we know is good for the world, it makes us happier too. So there are some thoughts, some food for thought for you, and more of this in our books, How to Be Happy and Finding Happiness After COVID-19. And so there you have some food for thought. We've just dipped our toes into the waters of some of the most important aspects of happiness, and hopefully left you with some food for thought. And really, in essence, it's about trying to get the balance better between, on the one hand, external wealth, all the stuff that we can buy and consume and enjoy, and on the other hand, internal wealth, the stuff that we can't buy, the stuff that goes on inside our heads and our hearts constantly, trying to get the better balance between the two. And we'll explore more of these issues in subsequent reels, and we hope you join us. Until then, that's all for now.